All right, everybody, I'm here with Chris Gobby, one of the most polarizing figures in arm wrestling today. Star of the Arm Hub, one of the stars of the Arm Hub podcast, and competitor in the upcoming Bottom 8 event. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm good. All's good, training's good. I actually enjoyed that podcast last night, the Beaver Pump podcast. I mean, no podcast is a bad podcast in our sport. So it was fun. Everything's good. Training's good. Diet's good. Everything's on par.
Yeah, I agree. I watched that last night too, and I thought Paul Lynn, he comes across as a guy that really knows his stuff, and he's got the education to back it up, and he's got the success on the arm wrestling table now to back it up as well.
Yeah. There's certain guys in sports that anytime they're talking or on a show or whatever, anything they have to say, usually listen. There's not many of them. There might be 10, but Paul Lynn's definitely one of them.
Right on.
Very knowledgeable guy, very articulate, well-spoken.
So the top eight's one thing. The bottom eight's kind of taken the world by storm here. At least in North America, it seems to be getting the most attention of any of the major events coming up, and it may even be overshadowing a little bit the upcoming WAL event. So you're a participant in that, and we kind of know your thoughts on Ryan Bowen. But is there anything else you want to add that maybe people haven't heard before on the other podcasts?
At first, I was skeptical, but it seems like when in any sport, any major sport, UFC, no matter what, you have. I think it's encouraged that a lot of the Facebook and social media following aids to the marketing of the fight or the match or what have you. So I think that's what Devin's doing, right? He's getting 6 or 8 of the more not marketable, but just guys that are going to go out there and not try to market themselves and stuff like that. And so I think that's working. I mean, one guy's never even arm wrestled, and he's getting publicity. So it's not a bad ingredient. It's not a bad recipe. It's not a bad recipe for popularity. It seems to be working anyway.
So no matter what happens, we're going to see some pretty colorful matchups with some colorful characters. What happens? Here's the one question no one has asked anyone. What happens after the bottom 8 is over? What do these guys do that have had their few minutes of fame and then they...
It depends on who wins. If there's a massive upset, there could be, it could... I mean, the odds of... the Beaver Pumper can't win it. It's not even astronomically possible, but let's say Juji Mufu wins it. Maybe he's quiet and training his ass off. Who knows? Maybe everyone else fatigues. But if that would happen, he would market. He would get a lot, and the arm wrestling world would benefit mostly. Probably if he wins, we would get more of an outside demographic looking in and peering into our inner workings and stuff like that. So it's interesting. But like anything else, there's hype. It happens, and then there's just a sigh, and the next thing comes up. The big question is, where does Devin go after this? One thing that's a little bit more that's being overshadowed and people aren't talking about is personalities are getting more focused. But the fact that Devin's putting on a tournament that's funded by sponsors, there's cash to the winner, and here's the big thing: there's no entry fee. And I always thought that our sport, the fact that you have to charge someone a participation fee for a trophy or a medal is kind of what the crux of our sport. So I think that's, for me, that's the biggest thing moving forward. And I'm hoping, regardless of who wins at the bottom 8, that doesn't matter. But let's say there's 340 entries or something astronomical, and the sponsors are crazy happy, and they put on another event like this, middle 8, doesn't matter. But it's the same format where there is no entry fee and there's cash prizes. I mean, I think that's where the sport needs to go. So I'm just really happy about that. And it took, Devin having the foresight to do it that way, instead of charging $25 a person and raking up, making $3-4 grand in an afternoon or an evening. So I think that's very altruistic of him, and I think that's where the sport needs to go. Promoters don't need to make $5,000 for an evening.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's a fun event. Now, what do you think the chances of Juji actually showing up are? Because he's done a lot of posting. He's done a regular on social media. He does some arm wrestling stuff. but he has not actually mentioned, as far as I know,
No.
the bottom 8 in any way.
No. I said from the get-go that I don't believe he's gonna show up, and the closer we get to it, the more I'm quite certain he won't show up. At what point does he confirm with Devin, and Devin brings in Big Frank? Is it? Yeah, Big Frank. I don't know, but the fact that he's going on and he's doing these, Juju Mufu did a video I saw the other day on some type of punching and arm wrestling. I don't think he takes anything serious. The only thing he takes serious is views, which for me, he loses all credibility in my world. He's not committing to anything. He's not passionate about anything except fueling his narcissism. So, zero respect for that guy. Even if he shows up, I won't shake his hand. The sport doesn't need someone like that. Frankly, I don't see how anyone could respect someone like that. Is he a physical freak? Yes. Is he an uber athlete? Sure. Does he do anything for our sport? No. And even if we do get some type of like collateral views because of his stuff, or we have in the past, I don't know. Someone like that just does nothing for the future of the sport. He'll use arm wrestling for whatever it can help him, and he doesn't give any shits on how he can help the sport. At no point has he ever asked, what am I doing to contribute, or can I contribute? He doesn't. That never entered his mind. He's not built that way. That's not how he's programmed. So I don't think he'll show. It makes no sense.
That's an interesting take, and I can't argue against it in any way. For someone that has enjoyed a lot of content based on arm wrestling, he sure hasn't given back anything.
No.
Yeah. So, if he shows, can the Beaver Pumper beat him?
We saw videos of him losing to Angelo Matthews, although he might have been fatigued. One thing with Juju Mufu and many people who are bodybuilders, powerlifters that play around with arm wrestling is they have no bottom hand containment. So if in fact the Beaver Pumper, and one thing I think he's doing right, or he's claiming to do right, is focusing just on the top roll. And if in fact he can get it to a slight degree and everything is timed well and it's a mechanically sound top roll, even though there's not much power behind it, if he can focus on that one little angle and get just a little bit of a break on that guy's hand, like almost like flat wrist him, I think there's a chance. But I hope he wins, and I predicted that he'd win only because I'm in his corner. But let's face it, if you put me on a bet, if you want to give me 10-1 odds on Juju Mufu, I'll probably take them. Like it's just a much stronger man. The guy's 50. Beaver Pumper's 56 or 58, and zero arm wrestling training beyond what this event has led him to train for. So it doesn't look good. But God willing, I mean, if he does beat him, if he does show and he does beat him, I'll be the happiest guy in the room.
Yeah, I applaud his bravery, and there are some things that are not necessarily measurables in the sport, like how much does a beaver actually weigh, but we don't know much, and dedicating your training for a few months and then jumping into an arm wrestling tournament isn't necessarily the best idea yet. I don't know. It seems he's jumping into some deep water there, because there are some legit guys in that bottom 8.
You know, and if he does hurt himself, I don't think I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but usually when someone comes out of the woodworking like this and it's podcast and it's messaging all the big stars and trying to get their name out there quicker and not really taking the long route but the quick route to fame, so to speak, or social media fame. The risk is, he knows the risks, and he knows that this is all for, I'm not saying it's self-serving, but he's trying to get some attention. He's feeling excited about something, and I'm sure people have told him this might not be the best idea, and if he does get hurt, it's on him. He's been told, he knows the risks, and he knows what he's sacrificing and what he's getting. He's probably got more attention in the last month than he has from social media than the rest of his life collectively. So, even if he does tear something or he hurts something, I'm sure in his mind it's well worth it. Yeah. What I like to ask the question is, no matter how he does, like let's say he loses, but he has a good time, does he continue to compete? Do we see him at a nationals down the road, or does he just fade into the periphery and we never hear of him again like that? too fast and quick and makes a loud noise. Once they get popped, they're gone. Slow and steady usually wins the race in our sport. But we'll see. Like I said, I think his intent as well is good. His intent is good. He's doing. He's marketing the sport well. He's doing his best, and I hope he just has a good time. And beyond how he does, I just really hope he gets a bite for the sport and falls in love with it and continues to arm wrestle for the next 10, 12 years and travels and enjoys it. That's really because he's not. Let's face it, he's not turning around and going to Russia or Poland next year, beating Zoliev. I mean, let's face it, right? He's 58. He's a good guy, and I hope he.
He did offer to go. He did offer to go as an alternate to the top 8, right?
Yeah, I let Igor laugh his ass off too, right? It's all good, man. It's all good. There's nothing bad. I think he does everything he's doing is good and jovial and it's fun. I have a lot more respect for him, and I'll shake his hand and have a drink with him than more respect and than I have for Juji Mufu. One is trying to embrace the sport regardless of the outcome and just showing a passion for it regardless of his agenda. And the other guy, I mean, we can all see anyone who has a pair of eyes at arm wrestling can see that guy doesn't give a fuck about the sport. I mean, he's putting on videos that have nothing to do with the bottom weight. Yeah. He's not even promoting. Devin's promoting him, and he's not even promoting the event. So that's a slap in the face not only to us, it's a slap in the face to, well, as Canadians, it's a slap in the face to the best Canadian, our top Canadian, arguably our top, one of the top athletes in our sport. He's not paying him respect or any type of reciprocity. So I think he seems like just a joke of a man, really.
Well, I mean, what do you think about switching gears a little bit? We got the top 8 coming up. To me, the most interesting match in the whole thing is Tim Bresnan versus Levon.
Yeah.
I've pulled Levon, and I would, you know what? I would probably place a bet on Tim.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I think that stylistically, if Levon has a weak point, it's going to be his wrist. And I think the way that Tim pulls, he's going to open him right up. And it's either going to be a war of a match, but you know what? I think Tim's got this one in him. It's not going to be an easy match, but I would go out there and that would be my bet.
Yeah, there's
And I better get odds if I do make that bet.
Yeah, you'll get odds, especially if you talk to any Europeans. You'll get odds for sure. Tim's one of the guys, much like Todd Hutchins, where I could talk about all day. I mean, not a physical freak, not aesthetically pleasing to the eye. I think Tim's like the Rocky of our sport. He never gets his due. He's always an underdog, and as many times as you want to count him out, he always seems to just keep himself in the match. And I do agree. Conditioning, Tim. Intangibles, Tim. Experience under heavy fire, Tim. Levon has a big hand, but I mean, there might be holes in that hand. Like you said, the big hand doesn't always doesn't equal a stable wrist. We've seen some. Mark Krause. I know you probably know Mark Krause from many nationals. One of the biggest hands I've ever seen under 180, like probably bigger than Alan Fisher's hand, and he can make 165. And his wrist often goes back. So it's like the massive hand doesn't always learn to stabilize the wrist. But it's not. Maybe because it doesn't seem it needs to, or maybe because they focus too much on certain things. But I agree. I don't know if I'm a betting man who I go with. And I think Levon's just a terror. But I agree. Tim has outs in this. Tim has a good chance. And God, I'd love to see Tim win.
It would spoil the day of a lot of people over there. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, he can do it. He's just there's something about him that just he doesn't get intimidated. The bigger the match, the bigger he performs. He's not a big shit talker. He's not a big self-promoter. He's a family man. He's a hard worker. He's paid his dues. And if anyone deserves to win that event, man, it's him, right?
Yeah.
And the only North American in that top 8, I believe. And if he can get past Levon, man, got good conditioning within that move. He's got an incredible wrist, incredible combination of pronation and supination out of that wrist. You've pulled him a couple times, haven't you?
I have, and Levon can be a little bit reckless too when he's arm wrestling. So I think, intangibles, they'll come into play.
Yeah.
I have pulled Tim. It's been a long time since I've pulled Tim. I beat Tim when he was relatively new. And that was the last time I beat Tim. I would like another shot at him, for the record, but.
Yeah.
But
you know, I remember when he came up in 2010 or 11 to the Toronto Pro Show when he had a super match with Devin. It was supposed to be a 3 out of 5. It ended up being a 4 out of 7. Now, Tim won the first match. Tim, easily. Tim watched the second match. Not as easy, but convincingly. The third match was longer. It was a war. He won the third. Of course, at this point, Devin with all his games and pumping him up. Devin came and won the last 4. But for me, it didn't win that super match. For me, if you can win the first 3, you're the better arm wrestler. Like, if you and me have a race to 1,000 matches and you get the first 499 and I can do the last 501, am I the better arm wrestler? Like, it's like Tim was a better man, but it was a 4 to 7. I don't like the 4 to 7. And Tim, Tim just never seems to catch a fucking break, but he was the man that day. He was the man that day against Devin in his peak. Devin just coming back after beating, within 2 years of beating Michael Todd and John Brzenk, and then Tim lights him up 3 in a row. But ultimately ends up losing the super match. I mean, poor guy. Yeah,
that's the great debate. Back when Igor started these 6-rounders, the debate was who's better, the guy that can outlast the other guy and win the last 4, or is it the guy that wins the first couple of matches? Because in theory, that guy would be the better tournament arm wrestler and not just lose because he was tired. And I'm convinced that argument is 100% based on Devin winning matches in the late rounds.
Yep.
So, but who is it? I mean, I watched Devin pull Don Underwood on the terrace suite of the MGM Grand, and it looked like about 75 matches when it was unedited. Yeah. And Don eventually lost, but in a lot of people's minds and the ones that are there, Underwood won that match, but it's ancient history now. Yeah. Well, man, we've been going a long time. For my podcast, this is long for an interview. So you got anything you want to plug, anything you want to wrap up, anything you want to talk about before we head out?
Probably have Ryan Bowen on the Arm Hub in the next couple of weeks, try to get him on. Other than that, just questions and stuff like that. I wanted to ask you, of course, I do follow you. I'm wondering what you have next. Are you looking for? I know you're looking at nationals because it's kind of it's in Edmonton, I believe, right?
It's in Edmonton. It's in Edmonton, so I'm gonna go. I would probably go anyway, but it's a drive, not a flaw. It's a long drive. It's 13 hours. But my daughter's arm wrestling now too. So when she goes to the provincials, we'll progress from there and go on to the nationals and do that. So I'll definitely be at the nationals. And there's some other stuff coming up that I'm not allowed to talk about yet.
Right, I got you. We talked about that before, and I'm rooting for you. Last question: who goes farther, Jets or Leafs in the playoffs?
The Jets, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I agree. Leafs have the Bruins.
You had credibility right up until you asked that question.
I know it's not going to be action out of you. Are you a Jets fan? Are you a Jets fan?
I'm a Jets fan. Yeah.
Good man.
Mark Scheifele's the best player in the league.
Guys, he's a 200-foot center, right? I like him. And he's a Toronto boy. Don't forget, he's a Toronto boy.
All right, I'll give you a little bit of props for that. Yeah. All right, man. We'll wrap it up here. And thanks for coming on the show, man.
My pleasure. Take it easy, and we'll talk soon.
Right on.